Flex was designed to work with people between the ages of 40 and 65 to look at how they might plan for a convivial life as they age. So we're looking at the whole lifespan, but starting at the point where people are starting to first think about what happens as they get older. And rather than looking at it in terms of assistive living and how they might make themselves comfortable with physical infirmity, we're looking at what would actually keep them connected as people become more socially isolated. And there's evidence that that increases as you get older because perhaps mobility goes down. And also there's a tendency for families to move away and things become more separate. So how can you decrease that separation? What can you do? How can you design in a convivial life as you age? There's an increasingly ageing population. They need to stay in their own homes, partly because it's actually much nicer to do so, partly because the care bill is going to be astronomical. But there's a lot of work in assistive technology that helps people do so to live independently from care. But independent living isn't necessarily convivial living. It isolates people further. So how do we actually encourage people to connect? Or how do people go out and rediscover what it is in a community that makes them connect? I think we incorporated design in a number of ways in this project. One of them is actually in terms of how we might think about our environment, which is heavily designed. One question then was how much would people redesign their actual material environment and change the bricks and mortar so that they were more convivial. And we found that people really weren't very interested in that aspect. So then there are other sort of, how would you design social process so that people are more engaged? What kinds of intervention could you design which connect people together? So there might be sharing technologies that could be designed, or processes where people decide they're going to walk their dogs together, and little interventions like that. And we were asking people how they'd made their own decisions in those sorts of spaces and things that they would like to share, almost like recipes, which are in effect design interventions. So that was one area, but the other side was very much in terms of method, because we didn't want to just plonk a load of people together give them a questionnaire. So how were we going to bring people together so that they would actually interact warmly and convivially themselves? And so we targeted a group who were between 40, and we thought it was going to be about 65. I think we ended up to about 80. But it was a really diverse group, from social housing, from rental housing, people who own their own homes, single parents, retirees, really diverse group. And when we brought them together, we thought, well, we need to do this in a way that allows for some joy, maybe, if we're going to talk about those kinds of aspects. So we brought them together over a tea party, and how we designed the questions and the way that the questions actually were part of the tea party was very much also a kind of design. There are a number of disciplines involved in a project like this. We're working with somebody who specialises in interior design. We've got a community partner who work in architecture, but they look particularly at how ordinary people can engage in architectural practice and think about the spaces and the buildings around them. My background is design, but it's also performance and looking at how people engage with each other. So that's the core that come together in the project. But we also brought in a series of experts. We brought in architecture experts, we brought in people whose background is how people can age comfortably. Some of that was about assistive living, but also about the kinds of things that might be useful to keep people feeling socially engaged. And also, we all have a commitment to being participatory. So it's not that we want to tell older people what to do. We want older people to be thinking about what it is they want to do and to share that with us. The way that we engaged the community groups that we worked with, and this is where it's so useful to have a very well-connected partner involved, was to use the networks that Northern Architecture already has. So they know a number of social housing organisations. They know a lot of people who are interested in this kind of work. We've just asked, can we have people who would be interested in coming to a tea party and talking about future living? The sorts of things that I've learned have been really rich and diverse. One thing has been about the sort of simple joy of working with other people who have a similar kind of interest. So I've been working with Andy Milligan at the University of Dundee and working with Lowry and Carroll at Northern Architecture, and I think the issues that we care about are very similar, but the way that we approach them is quite diverse, and that's been a real richness to my practice as a researcher. I think the other aspect, though, has been that I like to play with the way that people engage, and we were using a cafe after hours in which to do these exchanges around the idea of convivial ageing. And so we were booking spaces that I've never worked in before. Instead of the sort of clinical white environment that a lot of interactions happen when you're doing research, we were able to take it into a very kind of charming space, decorate it, put candles on the table, put scones and sandwiches out with questions that were actually hidden in the food, so that instead of having to dictate an order to people's inquiry, things were just emerging and they were sort of having a look, it was relaxed, they were able to talk to each other. So this real sort of diverse mixture of people came together in a way that was quite open, warm, and for me that was a really nice development of how you plan exchanges. If you're interested in working on a Connected Communities project, one of the things I would suggest is that you find a community partner that you can work well with. Go and talk to them, find out what their priorities are, work out what would actually motivate them to be involved. Then think about how you cost in their time, but also something that's of more value to them than that, which will actually promote their organisation or institution or something which they would like to see developed. Bring that together and work together in developing it. So it may well be that you do the writing, but that you're writing down something that's a genuine joint proposal. We're still wrapping the project up, but we've already worked out what several outcomes are going to be. Obviously there are academics involved and we'd like to write papers to share it in the academic community, but we're also interested in working with small organisations and community partners of other kinds. So we're distilling our findings about sharing and convivial living into a series of recipes, which we want to put into a sort of centre spread of a newsletter as actually a series of placemats that can then also be used as the centre point of an exhibition that we're running in Dundee.